Goody, welcome to E&J Reacts. Today we'll be watching a Minecraft video. You already know the vibes. Let's get right to it, baby.
Well, my friends, this is it. Minecraft will never be the same again. Although you could say that about any update of Minecraft, really.
For
The
real.
game is always changing, but here in 1.17, this feels phenomenal. With this
My
snapshot,
mans.
we now have the new, improved cave generation, increased world height, and the ability to fly around with an
Yeah,
elytra underground is just phenomenal.
dude, I'm literally looking at this guy
This
fly and I can't believe it.
1.17 update,
It's
it's
pretty
really
cool.
going to be something special.
I agree.
So, welcome back to another Minecraft update video. This is Snapshot 21w06a, and you know me, I like to bring you all of the details, and on occasion, I actually missed something, like in the last snapshot, the moss block. I tested it with bone meal, and I think the first thing that grew on top of it was actually a carpet, and then I thought that, nothing was happening here. Well, if you grow it at the level of something like stone, it actually replaces that, and this is how you get things like the azalea bushes. So more on that later on. Of course, you're here to find out what is taking place in 06A.
Yeah.
So 1.17 is the Caves and Cliffs update, and as of
My
this
mans can
snapshot,
really
it's only
fly.
the underground caves that have been
Jesus.
changed. As you'll see, the surface looks like a regular, normal world. That could be subject to change, and a lot of stuff that we're going to see will be subject to change, as this is some ongoing development right here. Now, one thing that will be different on the surface is the intersecting of the new cave types. So here is actually one of those new cave types coming up to the surface, and so little things like this will be slightly different. Now, in order to understand the scale of change, I need you to visualize a Minecraft world with wall blocks. The grey one down the bottom here represents 64 blocks, and that's the underground portion of the world from the surface to the bedrock. The carpet is representing the surface area where there is commonly grass, and then we have an additional 192 blocks, that's 3 times 64, of space above us that we can build up into. Well, with this update, they're adding an additional 64 blocks of building space that you can go higher in the world and place blocks at, but also 64 blocks lower. This means that there will now be caves generating down below 0 and going into the negative numbers. So this high up in the world, I can't actually see anything down below me, but this you can see is the new world height limit at 320 blocks. And this is the unfamiliar site at the bottom of the world. If I press F3, where we're below bedrock, you can see we're at minus 67. So if I go up through the bedrock, you can see the caves are now generating below 0, and they look fantastic. So from top to bottom, that is 384 blocks that you can build within a Minecraft world. And the underground area is now actually doubled, and you can really get a feel for it in caves as big as this one. One thing I will say, it is a little tricky to show off, because this is not how you would see it in survival Minecraft. I actually have night vision right now, and if I clear it, then practically everything is really hard to see, and especially so with YouTube's compression, right? Like, these caves are not going to look good if we check them out in the dark. So we shall be using night vision, and we can also see how these caves generate by flying through the space between them. Again, a way you don't really see it in survival Minecraft. One thing you're going to notice though is that the old cave types still generate. We've got a mine shaft below us. Looks like it's intersecting here with some of the new stuff, but up above we've got the squiggly old caves of old. So this stuff hasn't actually been removed from the game. You can see we've got a ravine, a very narrow and sideways one over here. And my favourite of all the way the new caves generate are these big open underground areas. These are going to be so much fun to discover in survival and then take over and make underground bases. So these new caves are known as noise caves, and that doesn't mean anything to do with sound. It's a technical term for generating shapes. There are two types: spaghetti caves, which I believe we're looking at right now. These are described as long squiggly tunnels. The other type are cheese caves, and they describe them as being like the holes in Swiss cheese. And behind me, I think we're seeing a little bit of that down here. But the layout of this area is just jaw-dropping. This looks so interesting to explore. Let's go down inside to this area. You can see that there are pillars coming down from the ceiling, and that gives it a bit more of a Swiss cheese vibe. However, I'm not sure I'd use those words to describe this layout. And then over in this space, it's a similar sort of thing, but just amplified to a larger scale, with lava and water dripping down all over the place. This thing is just absolutely epic. And look at this little area here. It almost looks like a dwarven mine, the way there's all these pillars holding up the ceiling. Again, I'm just going to keep singing the praises for this, right? It looks so good. So I think you can look at an area like this one and think Swiss cheese, and then turn around and look at that right there, and that's probably your spaghetti. However, I don't think I would have used either of those terms to describe the way that these caves now generate. Now, as we've flown around, you've probably noticed that some of the caves are waterlogged, and they tend to have their own sort of unique waterlogging level relative to the cave. So I can fly around off in this direction and then find some lakes that flood the bottom of this area down here, and it'll be at a different height to some flooding taking place in another area. And here's a minor detail about these large underwater lakes. They can also occasionally generate small patches of magma blocks. There's a couple here and a couple more over there. Now, the patch notes for this update do try to explain the water system known as aquifers and how it chooses to generate local water levels for particular types of caves. I actually couldn't really make too much sense of it because I flew around the world looking for examples that backed up what they'd written, and I didn't really see what they'd written playing out in the world. But anyway, all of this stuff is subject to change, and you can kind of make sense of it just by, exploring and seeing how they generate. So with all of these new things, mine shafts have been changed slightly as well. They've now been adapted to suit the larger caves, and they're also going to generate with less floating parts. As we come over here to a big cave, you can see some of this adaptation right here. They now generate log blocks going down to the bottom to support the floating parts. That is a really nice detail, but sometimes the generation is a little bit odd. We've got some random log blocks here. And there is also supposed to be no floating cobwebs. I'm going to guess this means ones that float with no blocks directly around them like that. And an important disclaimer alert about this snapshot: you won't be able to open old worlds generated before it in this one. There is currently no upgrade path. However, Mojang have not stated if there will be one or not. I think it's most likely by the time that 1.17 drops, you'll be able to play with the new generation in your old worlds by going to new chunks. However, it could also mean that 1.17 is an update where you have to make a new world, although I think that's going to be quite unlikely. As of right now though, with this snapshot, you can't play old worlds. So we have a few more things to talk about this video, but one thing I've been noticing is seeing a lot of diamonds, and of course they generate close to the bottom of the world, but now the bottom of the world is bigger, so I have set up some command blocks to actually remove most of the stuff around me so we can see how ores will now generate in this update. And before we get to the results of all that, there are a few minor changes, mostly relating to the drip leaf plant, which was added in the previous snapshot. One of the things that you could do is hold down jump or hold down shift when on top of this to stop the drip leaf from tilting over. Well, I thought it was a little bit of a silly idea. The community in general seemed to agree, and Mojang have actually made some changes here, so you can't do that anymore. However, if you power the drip leaf, then it will stay in this state. So there is a way to actually allow the player to stand on top of it. Now, another change is with projectiles. That's not just the snowball, arrows, splash potions. When they hit the drip leaf, they're now going to cause it to tilt, and this is a change from it breaking in the previous snapshot. However, if these things are powered, projectiles will still cause them to tilt, which I think could be a really good mechanic for minigames. There was also a bug with the small drip leaf plant, which is ironically a two-tool one. Placing it down could replace any block above it, and that has been corrected and is no longer possible. And the texture of this small drip leaf has been changed slightly, as well as the hanging roots. These appear to me to be hanging a little bit further down, so it looks like a few pixels have been added here and there. So how about that ore generation, hey? Well, this busy bee has been flying around removing lots of the blocks so that we leave behind the ores and we can see their distribution. And I think that actually nothing here has changed. However, it applies to all of this new space down below. So now when we look around, you can just see diamonds everywhere because they're not clustered at the very bottom of the world. There's now an additional 64 blocks for them to spawn in. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that they're going to be easier to get, but maybe they are, because these new caves that generate are kind of massive, and one of the things that helps you find diamonds easier is by discovering caves, because you walk into them, you see a lot of exposed blocks, and one of the things I've seen when flying around is lots more diamonds. So if you are venturing through a cave system like this, you've got to look all around you, up above, down, and below. They can generate absolutely everywhere, and it's going to be quick to traverse through areas like this. and then potentially see some of those diamonds. But then again, these caves are going to be really dark, so even though there's some diamonds over there, it's actually kind of hard to make that out while the area is so dark. But if I zoom in, you know, look, there's some more diamonds right there. So I don't know, maybe it will be easier, maybe it won't. One thing's for sure though, when you go caving, you're going to need to bring a lot of torches. So that's pretty much everything in this snapshot covered, and obviously there's going to be a lot to learn about exploring the new generation, which is subject to change. So let's talk about a few of the things that I missed in 05A. Foxes can actually eat the glowberries from the plant itself. As you can see though, this guy decided to take a nap, but they will wander up to the glowberry and actually eat it off of the plant. When it comes to the skulk sensor, some of the other block interactions it can detect is a cauldron having water placed or removed, a campfire being lit or unlit, and also the placing and removal of things into a flower pot. Now you'll probably remember earlier in the video I showed you the moss block and how it can replace blocks around it. Well, one of the ones it can't actually replace is grass. However, it can spread some of the things that it grows onto the grass block. Now there is a list in this game called Lush Plants Replaceable, and inside that list you can find all of these blocks, and it's supposed to be the thing that moss can replace, right? However, there's other things in that list that it can't, but all of these blocks right here, they can be replaced. And last of all of those new items added in the previous snapshot, they can be composted into bone meal, and you can see here the different items and the percentage chance they have of creating a layer when they are added to the composter. And that is pretty much everything, my friends. But a final note on this snapshot, remember, it's a development process and Mojang look for feedback from the community. So things will change snapshot to snapshot, and it's going to be an exciting journey. But I'm very happy to see the caves are here now. And if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, because that's...
Same to you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like and make sure with your friends or do whatever you want to do. Anyway, it's your boy Gracious Host. I'm signing off, baby.